Our guest today has had a really interesting stepmom journey that has taken her from California all the way to Jamaica and from beauty queen life to stepmom coaching. And she's one of our Stepmom Summit speakers in a few weeks. You are going to love hearing from her. I'm Cameron. I spent years building my career and creating a life I loved. And when my Prince Charming finally showed up, he had 4 kids in tow. Fast forward through lots of mistakes made and lessons learned, step-family life was much more complicated than I realized. If you're looking for help with blended family life, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Stepmom Diaries, where we keep it real as we dish about all the things. This is your weekly dose of blended family inspiration and encouragement. You're not the wicked stepmother, so let me help you find your fairy tale ending. Come on, let's do this. Welcome to the Stepmom Diaries, and welcome to Supersized August. I am giving you a supersized amount of podcast episodes this month. We're going to do 2 podcast episodes a week as we lead up to the Stepmom Summit, which is August 26th to August 28th. And I mentioned the summit to you last week, but wanted to tell you a little bit more about it today. I co-founded the Stepmom Summit with Beth McDonough of the Inclusive Stepmom, and we have got an incredible and diverse lineup of the world's top experts on all issues affecting stepmoms. Y'all, this is just going to be amazing. We have got issues that are going to be discussed like high conflict exes, self-care, boundaries, outsider syndrome, you name it. We've got the experts that are talking about it. You can get on the wait list at thestepmomsummit.com, and that's also where you can register once we open up registration in a couple of weeks. You will not want to miss this. So today, the first day of Supersized August, I have got an interview with Kimberly King, who happens to be one of our summit speakers, but is also a woman with a super interesting stepmom story that I think you can learn a lot from. She was born and raised in Southern California to immigrant parents. Kimberly is a certified stepfamily coach, using her knowledge and personal experience to help blended families navigate their way towards a peaceful and happy home. Kimberly is a biracial woman in an interracial and multicultural marriage and family. She is a former beauty queen turned chef and stepfamily coach. And let me tell you, she is a wealth of knowledge. When she's not helping stepfamilies, you can find her in the kitchen cooking up delightful dishes or doting on her 2-year-old. The Kings have recently traded city life for island life with a move from Los Angeles all the way to Jamaica. And let me tell you, Kimberly knows what it's like to have all the odds stacked against you in a blended family. You can connect with Kimberly on Instagram at honestly.mom and on her website, honestlymom.com. Now that's M-U-M, not M-O-M. But don't worry, I will put all of her links in our show notes. thiscustomlife.com/episode 26 is where you can find them. And she's also going to be, as I mentioned, a speaker at our upcoming Stepmom Summit. So you can also find out more about her at thestepmomsummit.com. So without any further ado, let's dive in and talk to Kimberly. So Kimberly, welcome. I'm so excited that you're here.
I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, and so you are in Pennsylvania for the summer, but usually in Jamaica, and you have got like such a great story that I can't wait to get into. So let's just dive in. Tell me your stepmom story. How did you meet your husband? How'd you become a stepmom? All the things.
Okay, so I've told this story, but I'll take it like a step back further so you can get the real juice. So I was living alone in Hollywood, California, for those of you who don't know, and it was like a sweet deal. I was in my 20s. I had become the apartment manager at that building, so I was living for free in a building that was like right on Hollywood Boulevard. It was kind of like the best thing I could have done in my 20s.
That's a sweet deal in LA.
The sweetest deal that I've ever finagled for myself. And I was just having a good time in life. And I think I had been on the heels of a breakup maybe 6 months prior. And then I was in this like, well, I just want to like try out new industries. And I had been into like home design and just, design. And so I was scouring Instagram for inspiration and people to connect with. And then I discovered my now husband's Instagram page. So fast forward a bit, I slid into his DMs.
I love it.
I sent him this really professional message. He didn't have very many pictures of himself on his page, so I was really attracted to his work. His studio location was ideal, and I was looking to just learn from someone. And so I sent him this direct message explaining all of that to him, and he'd responded pretty promptly, and he was just like, wow, most people don't say so much in DM. And so he was like, it's really cool of you to reach out. And he was actually in Philadelphia, where I am right now at the time for his best friend's wedding. So he'd said, yeah, we'll set up a meeting, when I get back in town. And I'm like, okay, hotshot. And then, weeks went by, I didn't hear from him. And I thought, well, whatever. I just kind of threw it to the wind and nothing happened. And then the week of 4th of July, he messaged me back, and it had been a month at least since the original exchange. And he said, what are you doing Friday? Are you busy for a lunch meeting? And I was like, no, great. And so we decided to meet on Friday, and I said, okay, well, where should I meet you? And then he goes, well, why don't you let me be a gentleman and pick you up? And I thought, is this a date or is this a meeting? What are we doing? And he picked me up, and I remember opening the door for myself, and he thought, you didn't even give me a chance to open the door. And I thought, okay, well, this is cute. And he was super cute. He pulled up in his cool car, and he looked all handsome. And I thought, this is going to be a nice meeting. And we went and had lunch, and it lasted for hours. I mean, much longer than it took us to eat the lunch. And then finally he brought me back home, and he's like, he's asking me about my job preferences, and it really didn't go. The job thing went down the drain really fast. And to sum it up, we've been together since the day we met. He goes, when can I see you again? And I was not trying to be all desperado. So I was like, next week. And he's like, well, what are you doing tomorrow? And I was like, oh, nothing. And he came over, and I cooked him dinner, and the rest is history. Here we are 5 years later. And so we were on the accelerated path. We dated, and then 6 months later, we had moved in together. 6 months after that, we were engaged. 6 months after that, we got married. 6 months after that, we had a baby. 6 months after that, we moved to another country. We were just kind of like, let's just do our entire lives in 5 years and see what happens.
So every 6 months.
Exactly.
Love it. So tell me about your family. You have got a really interesting blended family that's truly blended in every way. And you're living abroad. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So my ethnic background, my father's from Israel and my mother's from Belize. So I'm a first-generation American. My husband's American. His daughters are half Jamaican, as in his ex-wife is Jamaican. And then we moved to Jamaica, where I have some roots because my maternal grandfather was Jamaican before he moved from Jamaica to Belize, where he met my Belizean grandmother. It's kind of like a melting pot of cultures. But it's really cool to have that kind of like blended thing in your blended family. It certainly keeps things exciting.
Yeah. So tell me about having the multicultural aspect in addition to all of the challenges that blended families deal with. I mean, what has been the biggest thing that you've had to deal with? And I know there are probably many more than just one, but
there's so many things. If I could think back into the beginning, when I met my stepdaughters, they were 3 and 5. So they were just those ages. They're so tender. And when I look, I have a son now and he's almost 3. And so when I look at him and realize that he is the age that my youngest stepdaughter was when I got with her, basically, I'm mind blown that I was running around with somebody's baby and she was really like a baby. Like if I compare the two, my son and my stepdaughter at that time, I'm like, whoa. It puts it into perspective how blindly you leap into these situations where you're just like, oh yeah, stepmom. It's, you're taking care of somebody's kids and it's kind of like a family. And then you're like, whoa, when you have your own, or, when something else happens and it presents another perspective and you're able to connect the dots, it really holds so much more magnitude now looking back than it did when I was in it. Because when I was in it, I was just like, yeah, let's go. She was my little buddy. We'd go to the mall. We'd do all these cute things together. But certainly I was getting only a slice of it as a part-time parent. We still share custody with her mom. So it was fun. And then the fun dust settles, and then real life kicks in when you meet things like discipline and diet and school and the things that you want to have a say in. But culturally, I think one of the number one things was different discipline styles and what I expected based on how I was raised versus what I was seeing based on how someone else was raised. And it wasn't that one was better than the other. It was just very clear that we came from 2 different backgrounds. My husband, very luckily, he grew up in suburbia in what I like to call Beaver Cleaverville, and his parents are still married and they still live in the house that they all grew up in. And I think it's really sweet. And it sounds like a fantasy for what I kind of grew up in. I'm from the inner city. I'm the daughter of immigrants. I was raised by the entire village. It's just a different thing. And then you have these, I give this example all the time for people, and it sounds so silly, but in my world, it's kind of a big deal. So when I was younger, you'd come home from school and you'd greet everyone, before you drop the bag, before your foot hits the ground, you good afternoon, Grandpa, good afternoon, Auntie, whatever adult is in the house, you find them and you greet them properly. And if you didn't, you'd kind of get in trouble for it, because it was seen as rude or impolite that you didn't greet all the adults. Even if it was an adult you didn't recognize, if it was somebody's friend, it's like, hello, Mr. So-and-so. And then for my stepdaughters, one thing that used to grind my gears was they'd come home from school and my oldest stepdaughter would come in and she'd drop her backpack, she'd go use the bathroom, she'd grab a snack, she'd stop in her room, and I would just kind of be sitting there waiting for my hello, and then it wasn't a big deal to my husband, and I'm like, you're not going to make her say hello to me? What is going on here? And I realized that it wasn't a value for him because he didn't grow up that way. He's like, well, when I came home from school, my parents were at work, and the doors are open, and it's just it's not a thing. So I learned very quickly that it wasn't bad, but I had to adjust my expectations because I hadn't raised these kids from the beginning, and my husband and I didn't have the time to develop our together values. So we were still operating on what's your values is your thing, what's mine is my thing, but where are we going to meet in the middle so that I can feel like I'm seen in this house? And that's what I struggled with the most for a long time, was just not feeling seen. They'd go to sleep and tell their dad goodnight, and I'd be sitting next to him like, okay, am I chopped liver? Hello. I'm the one that bathed you and fed you and tucked you in, and now I'm not getting, it's like all the guts and no glory. And
so how were y'all able to find a way to the same page on that?
I think 5 years later, we're still finding our way to those things, but it changes. As the kids get older, you discover something that you'd want to correct. And now I'm challenging myself too and asking myself, well, I know I was raised this way and I know that I was taught this way, but is that the only way? Am I allowed to develop a new way for my family? You know, because my family looks different than the family that I grew up in. So we need to maybe have a remix. And so it causes me sometimes to step back and say, well, maybe that's a little too rigid, or maybe that's not the kind of mom I want to be. And you take a little bit of how you were raised and you mix it in with a little bit of what you've learned, and then you mix it with a little bit of the person that you're sharing a life with, that you're raising children with, and then you get this cocktail of, okay, this is what we're going to do. But I think it's just the communication. I try to communicate with my partner as much as possible. But you know, too, that's a fine line when you're telling someone about the behavior of their children, because they're going to turn into mama bear and papa bear. And you have to really watch your words, even though it's your partner. It's just natural. It's a natural defense when someone's telling you about something so near and dear, like your own child.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you talk about it as a cocktail. That's a really good way to put it, because you've got, you know, the merging of your styles, but then you've got the garnish of the biological mom.
Yeah.
And how has that all played in?
You know, we used to have a lot of communication in the beginning. I think I wanted the acceptance so badly, and I wanted her to know and understand that I was coming in peace, and that I just wanted to be a bonus to the family. I wanted to help the team. I was really genuinely a team player. And I met my husband so close to their ending that there were a lot of blurry lines, and naturally so. But over the years, especially after having my own child and after moving and going through all of these like big things, I have created a distance. And I think it's necessary when you're not being treated the way that you want to be treated, respected in the manner that you want to be respected. And there's a fine line between being someone's stepmom and being someone's wife. And I think for, you know, for people in the previous relationship, that gets blurry, because they think, you know, well, I have the kids, they're mine, so I'm entitled to all of this, and I still have access to your spouse. And that's kind of where the distance really started to set in for me, where I realized I know that everyone understands I'm the stepmom to these children. I'm not sure if everyone has caught on to the fact that I'm someone's wife, and that's a different role. So my view of it is, if you stay in your lane as a mom, and I don't say anything to you about how you mother, whether I like it or not, that's really not my business, then you have to stay out of my lane as someone's wife. So that means no after hours calling, no, you know, I'm having a brain fart of thoughts and I want to dump them into my ex-partner's lap, even though it's related to the children. You just have to develop certain boundaries. And so when I realized that those boundaries weren't being respected or even acknowledged, I thought, okay, well, I'm putting you on timeout. And the timeout has lasted, and I like it I like this where we are. And I didn't think that, I always thought that you had to have this open line of communication with everybody. Everybody needed to be on the same page. And I don't think I learned what self-preservation and disengaging, those two things, I didn't learn what that truly meant until I joined this cocktail.
Well, and it's so important. I mean, boundaries are, I think a lot of people view them as having sort of a bad connotation, but they're actually really positive. And so many stepmoms I know, including me, when I became a stepmom, it's like you're dealing with the bio mom and you're like, why won't you like me? Like, you try to force this relationship that you really don't need to have. You can coexist. Things can be civil, but you don't have to be best friends, and that's totally okay.
And it's totally okay that you don't like me, but you do have to respect me.
Well, and you do have to treat you with respect, right?
Exactly. And honestly, if I can fantasize about if the shoe were on the other foot, and I may eat my words one day. if the shoe were on the other foot, I would want to be really nice to the person watching my children. I would not want to piss that person off because I would, in the back of my mind, think about what the consequences could be for the environment that my children are being involved in. And so also, too, there's people, we like to call them high conflict. There's high conflict people out there, and they have a very different logic, or they lack thereof altogether. Mm-hmm. And so you wonder when, like, the children are at one house or the other, how can you help them have a good time when they're at the other house without them struggling with the loyalty, feeling guilty about having a good time at this person's house and not wanting to go to this person's house. What's not helpful is harassing the other parents while the children are there. Do you know that that's ruining the time for the children? And it may be because, you're reaching for that control and you want to be able to control what's happening with the children, even when they're not in your sights. But if you can take a step back and say, I want my children's other parents to be happy and to be at peace so that my children can be at peace and be happy when they're with them. Now, if I'm disrupting that, I'm then disrupting my children's time. And so at the end of the day, whatever you're doing to spite this new wife or to piss off your ex-husband, it's not. It's really only affecting the children. And so you have to ask yourself at this point, am I being a support to my own kids? And it's hard for people to swallow that the new wife or the new spouse, I should say, the new spouse or the new couple is who you should really have your vendetta against. Like, those are the people that are responsible for the children for half of the time. So I think it would just be in everyone's best interest to mind their business and just be happy and let go a little bit. I think control is something I struggled with in the beginning because, like I said, I lived alone. I was in my 20s. I didn't pay rent. I was having a good time. So to leave that and jump into a complicated situation
where so much is out of your control.
Where so much is out of my control. There's this one time, and it's funny because this theme has come up since I've been at my in-laws' house since we're in Philadelphia. And my oldest stepdaughter is allergic to pork. And one day at school, it was right around the time that I had moved into my then fiance's house. And I brought a couple of my things from my apartment, but he had already had a fully furnished home, and I didn't bring too much. But one of the things I brought was this shag rug, and it was hundreds of dollars. And I got it for like $60. There's this whole epic story behind it. And I loved that rug with everything in me. And so my stepdaughter came home from school and she had eaten. It was green eggs and ham day. And she wasn't supposed to eat the ham. And she ate the ham. And so she was violently sick. And I remember my husband cradling her and him saying, if you need to throw up, then say it. Of course she didn't say it, because why would she? She just starts chucking it all over the place and into this rug. And I'm like, no. I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm really concerned that she's going to be okay. But in my head, I'm like, she's going to barf and she's going to feel better tomorrow. But my rug, it's not going to feel better tomorrow. It's done. It's got to be tossed. It's going down into the trash. And so that night I agonized over this rug, and I know that it's a thing and we shouldn't be attached to things, but it was so symbolic of where I was in life that these little humans were going to be more important than my things. And I didn't have any little humans to take care of before. Mm-hmm. And so it forced me to shift my perspective. I didn't get to ease into it. I didn't get the 9 months that you take to have a baby. I didn't get the planning, whether you're going to give birth or not, or you're adopting or whatever. I didn't get that time period. So it was just like, boo, bitch, get rid of the rug. You got kids to take care of.
It can be a rude awakening.
And that kept happening as the glasses broke and all of the things that I had loved so much over the years. And it wasn't because they were things, but it was attached to the memories of a time. It took me back to the bachelorette pad and where I was and the kind of space that I was in, the conversations I had, who I shared that wine with in that glass. I would go down the rabbit hole of the memories of my stuff because it had just been me for so long. And then it wasn't just me and a guy, or me, a guy, and a girl, and a baby. It was me, a guy, a baby, another baby, and a baby mama. So we were like all the way in.
Yeah, I think so many stepmoms will identify with that emotion, because it is such a, and I know I can. I was single for a long time as well. And, I'm sitting here just nodding because I hear you on all that. Now, you are speaking at our Stepmom Summit next month, and we are so excited. And actually, I say next month, but by the time this airs, it'll be this month. And we can't wait. And you're going to be talking about diversity in blended families, which really is not talked about enough. And we're so excited to have you as a speaker, particularly because of your unique multicultural background and living abroad as a stepmom and all that kind of stuff. So without giving too much away, give us a little bit of a sneak peek about what we're going to learn from you.
Well, one of the common themes I run into with clients and just people alike, internet best friends, we all have our IG besties that we've never met in real life. One of those things is people wanting to know how to bridge the gap. If you're coming from such a different culture and now you're in this family where it's a different culture, but without the diversity and the multicultural aspect, I think a lot of step parents lose themselves in their families, in their new families, because they're trying to be what they think they have to be. And that's just on the surface. So then when you think about all the ways that you limit yourself, that you're watching what you say, that you're filtering through this and you're filtering through that, when it comes down to like dinner time, you want to make something that feels familiar to you, but is completely unfamiliar to your family. And then you've got little tiny faces scrunging up their noses because they're just like, what is this? Or the way that you talk. Should you be changing the way you speak around children that are from a different background? And the real answer is no. I think I have actually just discovered in the last 2 weeks that I'm not even going to censor curse words anymore because it's a part of my life. And I'm surprised my 2-year-old hasn't dropped the F-bomb by now. And that's okay. I'm a progressive parent. So if you stub your toe and you need to let out a shit, I'm going to be like, yeah, I would have probably said the same thing. So I definitely want to give people advice and tools on how to walk that line without losing yourself and really opening the door, how to open the door for your family, your stepchildren, your in-laws, all of those people that are involved in your blended family. How do you open the door and let them into your world without making them feel like theirs is any less than, but more like, I want to blend this, activities that you can do with your family to introduce them to new things, movies that you can watch. There's a lot of really simple ways that you can introduce things to your family without it feeling like, let's sit down now, we're having a lesson. It just becomes, my goal is to just have those things become natural parts of your day, just very natural, with ease. I think everything, that's my mantra in this particular season in life, is I want to accept challenges with ease. And that includes new things with my family. And it also involves you being open to. It's not just about you, like you want to teach them this, you want to show them this. It's also like, I want to share this with you, but because I want you to reciprocate something, but not asking like, hey, I gave you this, so you give me that. It's kind of just like a language that you don't really speak. It's how to move around each other in your home in a way that feels fluid and in a way that could feel familiar to those who are unfamiliar. So yeah, I want to talk a lot about that.
I think that there are going to be so many great lessons there, and not just for blended families that are multicultural. I think that there's a lot for us to learn. this is going to be awesome. So for you guys that are listening, head to the stepmomsummit.com and you can get on the wait list. And when registration opens up, you will be the first to know. And I think Kimberly is going to be one of our great speakers. It's going to be a really interesting discussion. So tell me just a few more questions before we end, because, I have a hard time stopping discussions because I always enjoy talking to people. So what is something, and I love to hear this from different stepmoms, what's something that was really unexpected? And, we always talk about the difference between expectations and reality when you get into stepmom life, but what is an issue that came up that was something that you didn't expect you would have to deal with that all of a sudden you did?
I think it's finances. I think
That's a hard one.
It is a really hard one, and it's unexpected because when you enter a situation and everything is good and you're on the up and up and you're in this like fairy tale romance and you're doing the wedding and you're getting pregnant and you're doing all of these exciting things and you haven't really hit your rock yet, you see couples and you hear couples and they're like, I've been married for 35 years and 50 years and we didn't have nothing at one point and she stayed with me and he stayed with me. And then you hear about those hard times and then you wonder like, am I in the hard time? Like, what, is it happening right now for me? And for us, things were really comfortable in the beginning and we were doing, my husband was doing really well and running several lucrative businesses. And you don't imagine that that's not going to be, that could not be the case at some point, whether for a season or for a long season, or if it's just a blip on your calendar. You really don't know until it is happening. And I think that was a stark realization for me, was that what happened, we just came out of a pandemic. I think we're kind of still in it. What happens when people lose jobs? What happens when child support and alimony was the responsibility of your spouse, but then it trickles down to you now because of circumstance. And then you ask yourself, well, is it my responsibility? Mm-hmm. Yes and no, because yes, there are consequences to my spouse if those needs are not met. And if that happens to my spouse, then that affects my household. So then I do have to step up, and then you get in, and then you're in the circle. You're invested in it. And then it's a scary place to be. It's a scary place to be there. It's a breeding ground for resentment. And you really have to fight against a lot when finances become the thing that wants to take your family down. And it's one thing when I remember seeing on Instagram a stepmom, she was answering questions from the community and someone asked about child support. And I was tuned in because I'm always interested in other people's situations because I know that it's so unique family to family. And someone asked her, like, does your husband pay child support? And she was just like, and how does it affect you? And she said, well, it was a bill that he was paying before me. And so it's just factored into his budget and it is what it is. And I thought, oh, you lucky little bitch, because that is not the real world. What happens when your husband loses his job? What happens? What I think sometimes we get so caught up in this, like, what it looks like for celebrities. You see these men and women they've had 3 wives and they've got 10 kids and they're supporting all of them. What is it like for the real people with regular jobs who are in between jobs and have this heavy obligation? And then I can't even get into how broken the system is and how the system has failed so many families and how helpless a lot of families feel because the system is so broken.
Yeah, these are real issues.
These are real issues that, one, no one's really talking about because finances are already a sensitive thing for people to discuss. And then when it comes to family court and things that a lot of people don't know about, you have a hard time talking to people about something where there's very little understanding, and where people want to advise where they don't know what it is. And so then you just get frustrated because you're just like, I don't want to talk to you about this because you literally have no idea what it's like. And that, I think, is something that needs to have some more light shed on it, because it's not easy for regular everyday families that are earning livings for themselves. Because if we can imagine how hard it is to support one family, then to imagine how hard it is to have a heavy financial obligation to another family, and then realize that in the child support system there's very little that can be done to the receiving parent, while the paying parent is held to a complete unrealistic standard of delivering on these payments. So I think for us, that has been a really tender subject for us to walk through. But we're walking through it. And I want other families to know that it's hard and you are not alone in that struggle. And step-parents and stepmoms alike, I know that, like, this is my message to you. Like, it's fucking hard. It's really fucking hard, but the commitment that you have to your family and to your children, whether you birthed them or not, and whether they came into your family through your spouse, you're making an impact. And it's not to say that you are fully obligated. Obviously, there's a lot of self-preservation that you have to inject into your situation, but I just hope you know that your efforts don't go unnoticed, and maybe it is not instantly gratified, but I'm out there and I'm rooting for you. If you're walking through this fire, I'm rooting for you, because I personally know how difficult it is to be in that situation, but I also know that there is another side of it, and then you will get back to it if you can remember the core of why you're here, and that's the love that you share with your partner and the beautiful family that you have an impact on. And hopefully it's just a season. And so if you're walking through some really difficult financial struggles that are attached to the, other family, just know that you've got support and you're seen in an often unseen scenario.
I love that. And I hope if you're listening to this today that you will rewind a little bit and listen again to what Kimberly just said, because these are important words and you're not alone. That's why we do these podcasts. That's why we're doing the summit. There are so many women who are struggling with these kinds of issues. And, I think that for those of us working in the stepmom world, we've only scratched the surface of all the things that people are dealing with. And so some of these untalked about issues are really important to think about, and really important to remember that everyone's trying their best here. That's a really important point that you made. So living abroad and being in a multicultural blended family and having some of these challenges that you guys have faced together, what is one piece of advice you would give a new stepmom, whether she's in a similar sort of blended family or just, I don't want to say your average run-of-the-mill blended family, because none of them are average, but
I would say focus on your spouse. Date your spouse. Be in your relationship. The children are going to be there. We know that. They're not going anywhere. But date your spouse and work on that foundation of love that first brought you here is what you need to focus on when everything else is crumbling around you. And as I say that, what's interesting about doing stepmom coaching is that as I'm saying 99% of it to other people, I'm really saying it to myself. It's something that I need to hear too. Date your spouse, be in that relationship, because that truly is the foundation of all you have. The children.
It's why you're there.
The stepchildren, the ones you have, the ones you don't have, your dog, everything. It's built on that initial foundation between you and your partner. So if that's not working or if that's shaky, everything underneath it inevitably will crumble. And so before you even get to that point, just keep pouring into each other, because that's really the only constant that you can rely on to remind you why you're doing this very hard thing. You would not be doing this very hard thing if it wasn't for this very special person. And so I think it's good to redirect all that energy into that person. I'm going to give you a little tip. On transition day, which has been Sunday for us, which I've always hated, because I think it's just disruptive to the weekend, and I could go into all the reasons. But anyways, how I decided to try and stop letting this get to me that we're waiting around on Sunday afternoons for the drop-off was I started blaring love songs through the house. All of my favorite ballads, Whitney, like every classic you could think of, every song that puts you in the mood to love on your man, your woman, whatever, play that. Get a playlist going of your favorite jams and just get in the mood and stay in the mood. When the kids get dropped off, let them join the mood. You know what? Mommy and Daddy, we're vibing today to the love song, so get into it. And just create your own love bubble. That's it. Just focus on that bubble. So I think I'm going to make I'm making a playlist. I got to make a playlist for the people.
I love it. Well, I always ask my guests one question, but I'm going to give you two because I'm interested. And we didn't talk at all about the other thing that you have done, which is you are a chef also. So the first question is, what's your favorite dish to make?
Tacos. Tacos is always at the top, but we go all in my house. We make the tortillas from scratch. We cook the chicken, shred the chicken, put it back in the juice. It's like a whole day-long process, but we have a standing taco night. It's Taco Tuesday. It's everyone's most favorite night, and yeah, the kids love it. It's definitely and I could eat tacos every day, so.
I love it. My husband's from Texas, and we do Taco Tuesdays also, but I guarantee our tacos probably get hold of torch here, so maybe I need to get some recipes. Okay, the other question I love to ask is, what are you binge watching right now? Oh, don't be. It can't be any worse than what I watch.
I'm watching Manifest right now, and have you seen it?
I haven't, but I've heard it's really good.
It's not that good. Let me just tell you. It's really not that good. But it's a good, mindless, entertaining thing. Because typically, I'm into like true stories, murder mystery, like really heavy stuff. Or I'm sobbing by the halfway through because it's some tragic story. And so sometimes I just need to watch something that's scripted and very fake, and I can just get into it. Exactly. So right now, as I'm summering with my 3 kids at my in-laws' house, which is a lot to handle, at the end of the night when everybody gets tucked in, I need to watch mindless entertainment. So if that's what you're looking for, Manifest is your show.
That's great. I'll have to check that out. Well, this was so much fun, and I can't wait to get some recipes. And I think, I do, this is one of those podcast episodes that I hope that our listeners will go back and listen to again, because I think there's some real gems here. But thank you so much. And I'm excited to see you in a couple of weeks at the Stepmom Summit. Will you tell everyone in the meantime where they can find you?
Yes, you can find me for all things stepmom at honestlymum.com. That's MUM, because I need to be different. And you can find me at honestly.mum on Instagram. And yeah, I'm sure you can link my personal stuff if you want to see my food and things like that. But for all things stepmom, just search Honestly Mom and I will pop up.
Perfect. And I will make sure that all of Kimberly's information is in our show notes. And again, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. This was great.
That's it for this week. If you've enjoyed our chat, I hope you'll help spread the word. Share this episode with friends and head on over to wherever you listen to podcasts and leave me a review. And don't forget, for more great stepmom content, head on over to thiscustomlife.com and follow me on social media. Just search This Custom Life on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest. Until next time, you keep being you and know that we are in this together. See you here next week.